Hello and welcome to Math Try, your online math tutor. Since this is my first video, I thought I'd do something simple for me to teach, such as simplifying the quadratic equation. So a quadratic equation has a general form of ax squared plus bx plus c. When we simplify it, we're left with a times x plus g times x plus h. And all this is always equal to y, because when we're trying to simplify a quadratic equation, we're trying to find our x-intercepts on the graph. Since we're trying to find our x-intercepts on the graph, we always say that y is equal to 0 because x is intercepted when y is equal to 0. So we can just say ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Now, in order to find out how to simplify it, we have to actually expand this equation. And so we have a times x plus g times x plus h is equal to 0. And we simplify by putting a into the brackets first. And then we expand it some more. So we have ax times x plus ax times h plus ga times x plus ga times h. So we go one step further and we have ax squared plus axh plus gax plus gah. Over here we see we have a common factor between these two, which is x. So we can go ahead and say that ax squared plus x times h plus ga plus gah. But in fact, all this has a common factor. Again, this is another common factor, which is a. And all of these have the common factor a. So we can just take out a and say a times x squared plus x times h plus g plus gh is equal to 0. Now this form looks very similar to both this form and this form. The only difference is that in this form, the a is not outside the brackets, but we can easily change that and say that a x squared plus b over a x plus c over a is equal to 0. Now, since both this form and this form are very similar, we can say that b over a is equivalent to our h plus g, because over here we have x times h plus g, and over here we have b over a over x. So both these are multiplied by x, however, but since both sides are multiplied by x, we can divide both sides by x, and that'll give us 1 on both sides. So that is equivalent to b over a is equal to h plus g. And over here, we have g times h, but over here, we have c over a. So we can say that that c over a is equal to g times h. So what this means is that in order to factor, we have to find two numbers which add up to b over a, and those same two numbers have to multiply to c over a. Now this may seem a little bit complicated, but we can use an example to make things look simple. So x squared plus x minus 2. In this example, our a is 1. Since our a is 1, any number divided by 1 is still the same number. We can just simply say b is equal to h plus g. But it is only for equations with 1 where a is equal to 1. And we can also say that c is then equal to g times h. So what this means is that we have to find a number which adds up to 1, since h plus g is equal to 1, and that same number those same two numbers have to multiply to negative 2, since our c is negative 2. So I know that 2 times negative 1 is equal to negative 2, and I know that 2 minus 1 is equal to 1. And that gives us our g and our h, since it works out to find b and c. So we can just go back to this equation over here and plug in our g and our h. Our g, which was 2, and our h, which was negative 1. And then we plug in our a, which is 1, which we can just omit, and we're left with that. and that is a simplified form. You can always check your answer by expanding this, as we did in the theory version. So we have x squared minus x, sorry, let me just do this full out for you, x times x plus x times negative 1 plus 2 times x plus 2 times negative 1. When we expand that further, we have x squared minus x plus 2x minus 2. And as we can see, this gives us our format of x squared minus, this gives us the format x squared minus x plus 2x minus 2, which is similar to ax squared plus bx plus c, and it is also similar to if we had our x squared plus hx plus gx plus g times h, because when we find the common factor, we have x is multiplying h plus g plus gh. And so we do that over here. We see that x is multiplying negative 1 and 2, so we say x squared plus x times 2 minus 1 minus 2. And this is our g, and this is our h, and when you add them together, you get our b. So that's how you check your answer. Now, what if our a isn't equal to 1? For example, I can give you the question, 2x squared plus 8x minus 24 is equal to y. Or we can say just equal to 0, since this is the standard form. What I would do is I would follow the format which I gave you over here and take out a from the entire equation. So let's do that, and we get 2 taken out is x squared plus 8 divided by 2, which is 4x, minus 24 divided by 2, which is 12, is equal to 0. From here, we can find that 2 times x squared plus x times g plus h plus g times h is equal to 0. And again, so we have g plus h is equal to 4, and g times h is equal to negative 12. So we have to find two numbers which add up to 4, and those same two numbers have to multiply to negative 12. I can say that 6 times negative 2 is equal to negative 12, and I can say that 6 minus 2 is equal to 4. So our g is equal to 6, and our h is equal to negative 2. Going back to our form here, a times x plus g times x plus h is equal to 0, we can simply plug in our numbers, and we are left with 2 times x plus 6 times x minus 2 is equal to 0, and this is our simplified form. However, if you find yourself in a situation where you can't actually guess what the two numbers add up to b is, and the same two numbers which add up, which multiply to c, there is something you can use called the quadratic formula in order to figure out what g and h are. But however, when you do the quadratic formula, it determines what x is equal to. And to determine what x is equal to from here, since you have 0 on one side, you can divide both sides by 2 and you'll still be left with 0. And again, you can divide both sides by x minus 2, because anything that is divided by 0, or anything that divides 0, that would be infinity. I don't know how to say it, but when you have this form, it's always equal to 0, and when you have this form, it's always equal to 0. So we can again say that x plus 6 is equal to 0, since we divide both sides by x minus 2. So we have x is equal to negative 6, and this would be our x-intercept on a graph, which is also what the quadratic formula will give us. The quadratic formula looks like this. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2 times a. Now this seems like something very hard to remember, but you get used to it and you'll be able to use it very easily. So we have our equation, which was 2x squared plus 8x minus 24 is equal to 0. So we can say that x is equal to negative 8, since our b was 8, plus or minus the square root of 8 squared, which is 64, and you can plug that into your calculator, minus 4 times 2 times negative 24. We know when we multiply two negative numbers, we get a positive number, so we can remove that negative sign and change that one into a positive. And then once we do that, we can multiply 4 times 2 times 24, which is 192. So let me just change that. And then again, you can plug that into your calculator and you'll get that adds up to 256. And this whole thing is still divided by 2a. And our a is 2. So now we have x is equal to negative 8 plus or minus, and you plug in square root 256 into your calculator, you'll get 16. And all that is divided by 4. Since both 8 and 16 are divisible by 4, you can simplify that into negative 2 plus or minus 4. So this will give us two possibilities. We can give the first possibility, which is negative 2 plus 4, or the second possibility, which is negative 2 minus 4. Both of them will determine your g and your h. So for our x1, we have the plus, so that will equal 2. And for our x2, we have the minus, which will equal to negative 6. As we saw above over here, our x is equal to negative 6 for one of them. And for the other one, it would be equal to 2, since we move this to the other side. So you can say that x minus 1, x1 minus 2 is equal to 0, and x2 plus 6 is equal to 0, and this will be your g, and this will be your h. So you go back to your form, ax plus g, x plus h is equal to 0, and then you plug in the numbers. A, which is our 2, x plus 6, and our x minus 2. And there again, you have the same equation. And you can expand it to check if you're correct, as we did earlier, when using the simple example. I can't find it, but we did it. Or you can just leave it be, but I suggest you check your answer always. So now I will give you one question which you can do yourself at home, and you can check the answer yourself, and you will be able to do quadratic equations from now on. Stay tuned for my next video. I hope you learned something today, and if you have any questions or like me to do something specific, please leave it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.